a few Japanese scientists went to America, and like one got the Nobel Prize. Oh, Japanese scientists are good. Oh yes, we're good. So it's like they need reassurance from outside. They need confirmation. And it's the same with Zazen. So since Deshimaru, Shunryu Suzuki, and all the Japanese men who went to the States and Europe, then Zazen became a little bit more popular. But generally speaking, you have to search for a temple where you could go and sit in Zazen. Normally, people don't do that. They may go to the temple for a memorial service for their parents, or for calligraphy classes, or something like that. But the format of like meeting every once a week and practicing Zazen, having talk about Buddhism, having retreats, really doesn't, still now, is not common in Japan.
So they sit at home?
Who?
Japanese.
No, the Japanese don't like Zazen.
Nishijima, how did he pick up Zazen?
Well, the history of Buddhism in Japan is quite strange. Before 1860, Japan was closed to the outside world for 300 years. And they had the Japanese temples, and they had the practice of Zazen, and they had teachers who taught that religion. And then when the Americans opened Japan in 1868, I think, then slowly Japan realized that we're a very stupid, simple country. We don't have any technology. We don't have any big machines like, steam engines, and we only have a stupid religion, sitting facing the wall. So we have to catch up with the world. So they sent many groups of Japanese, went to America and to Germany and to England and to Europe, other places, and they studied what the rest of the world is doing. And then those groups came back and they discussed it, and they said, okay, so we must have a better religion, because Christianity has got these great big churches, and they're very powerful. So if that religion comes to Japan, I think it conquers Japan. So then the people, senior Buddhist people in Japan said, okay, so we have different styles of Buddhism, like Soto, Rinzai, Obaku. So they asked all the heads of the temples to come and have a meeting, and okay, now you've got to decide what is the characteristic of your school of Buddhism. And I want you to discuss it and then write it down, and then, we have to sort out this, make our religion a bit more spiritual, a bit more. And so they did. So Rinzai said, okay, so we face outside. And Soto said, oh, no, we face inside. And Rinzai said, we teach koan. And Soto said, no, we're just sitting. And Obaku said, oh, we're doing special things with our hands, and so on. And so, strangely, they destroyed original Buddhism because they wanted to make it different, to be closer to the great spiritual religions in Europe. because they were worried that the great spiritual religions in Europe would conquer Japanese religion, and they didn't want that. So, but in some places there were some teachers who continued the original teachings, and my history is not so detailed, but there is one Japanese senior monk, and his name was Nishijima, and he taught Shobogenzo and Zazen, and he continued to teach even during the period where the Japanese government wanted to change Buddhism. He continued to teach the original teachings. So there's like just here and there small thread, and that continued. Meanwhile, for the rest of Buddhism, they decided to concentrate on ceremonies. So Buddhism is we do very nice funeral ceremony. So everybody has a Buddhist name when they die. And then we have a lot of chanting, and then people can come. So they invented like more ceremonies, but they forgot the original teachings, except for one or two teachers like Nishijima. And my teacher studied with a teacher some of you know called Gudo Sawaki, and he was one of these original. So he was outside the box. He didn't have a temple. He travelled round. He taught people about Zazen and Shobogenzo, and he said the Japanese people are group-minded. We have to break out of the group-mindedness and blah blah blah. So my teacher met him at one of the retreats. He would go around to do retreats, and my teacher, when he was 18 years old, went to one of these retreats, and he thought, this is something interesting. So he studied when he could with Gudo Sawaki, and then my teacher also set up kind of meetings which were different from the traditional Buddhism in Japan. So in a way I'm doing the same thing. I don't want to have a group with a Buddhist center with this is why I don't like the hierarchy, because of course there's always hierarchy in some way. So for instance, I studied Shobogenzo for 30 years, so I know it, and you don't. So so there's a hierarchy of knowledge, or a hierarchy of experience. But the idea of a big Buddhist center, and then you have the top teacher and so on. My teacher was not like that. His teacher was not like that. So I'm not like that. Because I don't want it. Because I think when you make a big organisation, the organisation becomes more powerful than the people.
Have you got an idea how long did Nishijima study with Gudo Sawaki? Gudo Sawaki died 1956.
65, I think.
65.
Yeah.
And Nishijima was born 1919.
Yes.
So it's a quite a long time. And when if he met him when
Yeah.
he was 18,
Yeah.
it's quite a long.
Well,
There was a war, no?
there was the war. Yes.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
There was the war in between, so he didn't. He went to like you're coming to a retreat, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So he went to Kodosawaki's retreats whenever he could.
Okay.
But it was impossible to be with Kodosawaki all the time because Kodosawaki was moving around the country.
Yeah.
But as far as he could, he went to study with Kodosawaki. And then he heard about Shobogenzo from Kodosawaki. So he started to study Shobogenzo. And then the war took over, and my teacher went to Manchuria as a soldier. And then after the war, he came back, and he had 2 sisters. So my teacher was the only son, and there were 2 sisters, and parents had died. So he had responsibility to kind of look after the family. So his life took over. But I don't know exactly when he stopped seeing Kodosawaki. I don't know. But Kodosawaki was his original teacher. And then he studied Shobogenzo. He said after work he would come home from the office and spend all evening studying Shobogenzo and trying to translate it into normal Japanese.
And in our lineage, I mean,
Yeah.
Shiho, what was the English?
Yeah.
What's the English?
Transmission.
Transmission. In our transmission,
Yeah.
there is he took his transmission from Rempo Niwa.
Yeah.
Was it kind of deliberate
No.
decision or?
No. So my teacher, Nishijima, so he went to one of the top universities in Japan. So after he graduated from university, he got a good job in the Ministry of Finance. So, quite a high job in government. So he worked, and then he came home and studied Shobogenzo every evening and practicing zazen every day on his own. And then when his life became a little bit more easier and he could retire early, he retired when he was 56, and he felt he wanted to become a monk.
Okay.
So he, Konosawaki already dead.
Yeah.
So he thought, which master can I find? So he said, when he was a child, he grew up in a town called Shizuoka.
Okay.
So he got the telephone book for Shizuoka and looked at the temples and chose one temple and rang up the temple, and then went to meet the temple master and asked the temple master if he could be a monk, a kind of ceremony. So the temple master accepted him as his student, and the temple master was a small country temple, not a large temple, called Tolkein, and so he became a monk. But he's still living at home, and he was married, and he had 2 daughters, and so he was a monk, but he was also a normal person. And the temple master who accepted him just built on the side of his temple a new zazen hall by coincidence. A Japanese zazen hall is a special design, separate building, and it has places to sit around the edge and so on. So he built this new zazen hall, zendo. So the temple master said to Nishijima, "Oh, you like to practice zazen? Please use the zendo, the zazen hall." So then he started having sesshin in the zazen hall and continued for many years. So he borrowed the zazen hall from the temple master at the little temple in Shizuoka. And the temple master was Rempo Niwa.
Oh.
And it was only a very small temple, but the temple master had a very big personality. And after another 20 years, the temple master became head of the whole of the Soto school of Buddhism in Japan. So my teacher was the student of the head master for the whole of Japan for the Soto school. By chance. Yeah. And the temple master was called Rempo Niwa, and he was a very charismatic man. Quite amazing. I met him not so many times, but I remember being in the small temple where we went for all our sessions. 5-6 times a year we went to the temple, and he lived in a small house beside the temple, so sometimes he would come and see us, and he was quite old and he had big eyebrows. And we used to do samu. So in the grounds of the temple, there would be a stone, like full of water, a stone sink, sink, with a nice dragon carved, very Japanese. So the dragon is like over the sink, and water's coming out of the dragon's mouth into the sink, and then you had a scoop. You would take the water like this and you clean your hands and feet. It's a ritual. So I thought, for Samu, I would clean the sink inside because it was green, like green moss. So okay, so I'm cleaning away like this, and I felt like heat here. And I turned around, and maybe 100 meters away, Rempo Niwa is. And I realized there's no need to clean the moss. The moss is okay. The water's okay. And he told me that through the back of my neck. So he was a very unusual man. It's okay as it is. Pardon?
Okay. Some miracle, but...
Miracle, yeah. So we used this temple, it's called Tokein, for all our retreats. But my teacher lived in his house with his wife and had a meeting every Saturday. Every Saturday, every Saturday, every Saturday.
But he didn't live in Tokyo?
Yeah,
In Tokyo?
he lived on the edge of Tokyo,
Edge.
and we had a meeting in the centre of Tokyo.
Okay.
And when I met him, he just retired from work. But he had one Japanese student who was owner of a small company which made cosmetics for women, lipstick and, you know. And this man, who was the owner of the company, became a very sincere student. And he said to Nishijima, "Now you're retired, I'd like you to work for our company. So I will pay you, and you can have an office, and I will pay for all the work which you do. So if you write books, I will pay to publish them. The company will pay you a salary, and you can use your office to do Buddhist work. And then you can take the people, employees from the company, and take them on session to teach them." So he did.
They wanted? They wanted?
Some wanted it, some wanted it,
Or it was
some
the directive.
had to do it. But so the company had people in the company, managers at the top, right down to the new employees, all went to the session 5 times a year. So, you know, this time you go, next time you go, like this. And
Now we call it team building.
so the managers are learning to serve the food to the new employees, for example. So it had a very powerful effect. And also my teacher became advisor to the company to advise them how to make women's cosmetics. So the most important contribution, he said, because he used to go to the meetings of the directors, and he said, "This is my teacher, right, who knows nothing about women." really. He said, "I think you should have women salesmen, because you're selling cosmetics for women." So they did, and the company became very successful and much bigger. And then he continued to be like a priest, monk, advisor to this company, and he had an office there. And I used to go to his office every week to study Shobogenzo with him, and other students would go there. And the owner of the company, Mr. Ida, was a very nice man. And when I came back to England in 2000, he contributed money to help me to buy cushions and zabutons and so on. So he supported us for 3 years. So he was a very generous man. So he supported my teacher for many years, and then he supported me also. But he died. In addition, my teacher wanted to set up a new group, new way of doing zazen, and studying, separate from the Soto school, because the Soto school was very traditional, and there's lots of politics and fighting between the senior priests and hierarchy. So there was me and 2 American guys and another English guy and my Japanese wife. There were 5 of us and the teacher. We decided to set up a new group. So we called it Dogen Sangha. And we set up the new group. At the same time, Mr. Ida, who's the owner of the cosmetics company, said, if you want to make a place where you can practice, I have a building and you can use that building. And the building was a big 4-story building with many bedrooms, and downstairs a big kitchen and bathroom and everything. So he said, you can use it, you can make a kind of centre, and I will pay for everything if you want to change. So we designed a new kitchen and a big library, and then we made lots of separate rooms, 14 people, and a zendo, place, sitting room. And Mr. Ida paid for everything. And so we made this small centre in Tokyo where people could come and live. But I didn't live there because I was married, and we had an apartment in a different place. But over many years, over 20 years, many young people came and stayed for 1 month, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years.
And Nishijima was also living in that house? Or?
In the beginning, he used to come for 3 days a week and be at home for 4 days a week. And then slowly he spent more time there. I think he had to persuade his wife. Because he was not going to be at home, he's going to be the...
What happened with the building? Does it still exist?
No, that 2008, I don't remember actually. Mr. Ida died, so his 2 sons took over the company, and they were okay to continue using the building, but they were worried because my teacher was already 85, you know, getting older, and his he was becoming a little bit senile. Senile? A little bit strange, and they noticed. So,
Co to znamená? Senilní. Same word.
like me.
You?
Like you, Boris.
So the dojo continued, but the 2 sons were a bit worried because Nishijima Roshi was not able to manage the dojo so well, and sometimes there were very strange people living there, you know, because Nishijima never refused anybody. So I remember one American man who came and he wanted to live there, and
Brett? No, it's a joke.
Brad never lived there. He would visit there.
Never.
After some, he was there.
Nishijima.
No, the American
The
man.
American.
Yes. So he said, I can't walk. So he got a big cardboard box and he sat in the cardboard box and pushed himself along on the floor. He was some problem. Yeah. So Nishijima found it quite difficult to understand Western people. So he was quite puzzled. So it was difficult for him to manage the situation.
And not Japanese students at the time?
There were some Japanese, 2 or 3 Japanese people came and stayed there, but generally it was
International.
Spanish, Italian, French, English, American, Israeli, all countries. The young people all coming and staying for some time and then leaving again.
But also girls, because you said men before.
Oh, sorry.
Both?
Both, yeah.
I wonder how did they know about it? Did they have a website?
No. No. I think a lot of young people who came to Japan were interested in Zen. So then they would go to the Japan Tourist Office, and the Japan Tourist Office would give them a list of temples where they can do Zazen. So one of them would be our place. And then they would find out, oh, I can live there. Wow. And it was cheap. Really. So quite often they came to stay there because they could practice Zen. They didn't know what Zen was, but it sounded nice. And they could live there. And so that was the situation.
So it was on an official list.
Yes.
Part of the Soto organization? Or
No,
outside?
no.
Tourist.
But it was on the tourist list.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
And how did it look like daily routine there? In the center, how was...
So
Sojiji.
Nishijima Roshi never made people sit, but he used to get up at 5:30 every day, and then 6 to 7 he would practice Zazen. And he would tell people, if you want to live here, you must practice Zazen 2 times a day, but you can choose which time. I think he hoped people would get up in the morning, but not so many people wanted to get up at 6 o'clock. But he sat 4 times a day, so people could join.
He never selected the people if... he never selected
No.
if somebody is not
No.
going or
No,
telling him, please go
no,
away.
no. And sometimes other people in the dojo, they found a problem. You know, somebody's is not behaving properly.
Yeah.
So then they
very
would
difficult.
complain to Nishijima, and then there would be a meeting. But he never stopped people coming or stopped them going. And then when he was, maybe 86, 87, he fell over and he had fracture in his vertebrae. So he had to go to hospital. And while he was in hospital, the 2 sons of the company who owned the building decided that it was time to close it. So they closed it while he was in hospital. And then he moved to live in a small apartment, normal apartment. And the dojo, the Zen center closed. And then maybe 3 or 4 years later they pulled down the building and built, I don't know, some apartments or something.
And how is the relationship between Heiji structure and Nishijima?
Well, they thought he was they thought he was strange because he talked about Shobogenzo. And
Still now? Or what did it?
they did then. But then younger monks became a little bit interested. So they invited him to go and talk maybe 2 times a year. And then he used to go and talk 2 or 3 times a year there. But he never had a close connection with them. And then Niwa Rempo died, so there's no connection there.
Well, he's not accepted at this time.
No.
Maybe some.
No,
And they don't teach in Aichi Shobogenzo?
they didn't.
They didn't.
Maybe they do now.
Okay.
You know, there's a whole new generation of people.
I saw there are many young boys
Yes.
coming. And
Yeah, because you went.
Yeah.
So things change.
Anyway, tourists looking in the dojo how they chant and so on.
Yes.
Okay. After they go out.
Yes.
No connection between the people outside and.
No. So my teacher's life was quite unusual, and it was outside the box, if I use that expression. But at the same time, he was a Japanese man, and he was born in 1919, so there are many things he couldn't understand about young people, and especially people from other countries. He couldn't he couldn't easily see what kind of character, if somebody is a little strange or some, he couldn't tell easily.
I remember few people came to monastery because Kaisen have a monastery in some place in France. They get crazy during the running naked in the night. And
Oh, yeah?
so on. Yeah. Some people get crazy during the sessions and so on.
Is there any difference between Buddhist stance and Western philosophy stance on cause and effect? Regarding human action, like everyday life, is there any difference between
What do you think?
cause and effect?
Can you repeat?
No.
Či je rozdíl mezi příčinou a následkom v tom, jak to vidí východné a západné filozofie.
Do you think there's some different kind of philosophy? So there you have your answer.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm actually very thankful that he brought it up. I wanted to ask something about Shobogenzo, and because you've studied it for so long. Just a little bit of context. I was traveling in Mexico last month, and Roman lent me a book that's called Don't Be a Jerk.
Yeah.
Which is Brad Werner's book that is a paraphrasing of Gudo Nishijima and Mike Cross translation of Shobogenzo to English, right? And a lot of things were happening, a lot of very kind of difficult things were happening during this trip. And a lot of I saw a lot of very difficult things in Mexico as well.
Yeah.
And I was trying to see it every day. And I was sitting one day and I was reading just the chapter where Brad addresses a little bit about the universal law of cause and effect.
Yeah.
And that day somebody came to me and asked me, because they had the same perception that I used to have, that in Buddhism, karma kind of follows you and you will be punished. I don't know. Somebody asked me, like, what is the Buddhist take on this? And there is so many wrong things happening, and so much pain, and it was very difficult.
Yeah.
And I said, well, right now I have no idea, but I'm reading this. So I just opened the page and I read this, and it didn't. For the other person, it didn't make a lot of sense that it said that it was simultaneous, and that's how that cause and effect happens simultaneously, but we cannot see it.
Yeah.
And this person was saying, no, but look at the narcos, they die and they kidnap people and they're killing people every day and this situation, and karma. I didn't say anything. To be honest, I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was really like, when I came back, I was happy that I was gonna see you because I wanted to ask about this particular teaching of Dogen, cause and effect, and how important it really was for Dogen. Not like, I'm not talking about Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism.
In Dogen's time, there wasn't much science, but now we believe science, so we all understand cause and effect. In Dogen's time, they could understand cause and effect. If you put sugar in the tea is sweeter, so cause and effect. But Dogen wrote a chapter in which he said there seem to be cause and effect in four different ways. The first is you do something and you get the effect straight away. Maybe you don't notice it, but that's one. The second is you do something and you get the effect after a little while. Then the third one is you do something and the effect comes after a long time. And the fourth is you do something and the effect comes so long in the future that you don't see it. So he taught four different rules. So they're very crude, they're a very simple way of explaining what we explain in science more accurately. So cause and effect is the basis of everything. But sometimes we can't, from personal behaviour, we can't see the result of what we do. So often, because we can't see the result of what we do, we don't believe there is a result. So often we do something and I tried so hard, it doesn't seem to be working. But it is working, just we can't see it. So there are many cases, not just instantaneous. And Dogen wrote about 4 kinds. So Dogen's explanations are very ancient. But he's not talking about something different from science. He's just trying to explain cause and effect. Astronomical distances, we get the light from the star, which is how many light years away. So the light came from the star, but we don't get the effect until sometime later. So there's nothing special about cause and effect. We know it, but we can believe that everything we do has an effect, even we don't notice it. Good and bad doesn't matter.
Anyway, what do you think about this book, Don't Be a Jerk? Have you some opinion about this?
Yeah.
Because somebody recommended me to better to understand Shobogenzo to read it before or like this, but I'm not sure it's...
Well, he's trying to explain Shobogenzo in his way. So that's why he wrote it. And the title comes from his way of explaining one of the things that Dogen wrote. So he wrote a chapter about not doing wrong. And so Brad wanted to explain that by saying, don't be a jerk. So that's Brad's way of explaining it. Dogen didn't write, don't be a jerk. But Brad wants to explain it in his language, in his way. So everybody tries to explain things in their own way, really.
But there is some problem with the translation of this Nishijima Nagarjuna book or scripture between you and Nishijima.
Oh yeah.
And then maybe it's difficult to first understand if this translation is good or this is not good.
And
if we take some book or no, if we want to study deeply where the stream is coming.
Yeah.
Get a
I don't know.
picture. With a picture.
Yeah, okay, but I don't know if you understand. There are some maybe 2-3 translation from Nagarjuna.
Yeah.
Then which is good or not?
Yeah.
Means which translation from Shobogenzo? Or
Well, which biscuit do you like best? Chocolate one or this?
Okay.
Would you like tea or coffee?
Okay.
We all decide, don't we? Which teacher do you want to listen to? Which book do you want to read?
Yeah. This is enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when you speak about cause and effect,
Yes.
well, I can relate, yes. I see there's cause and effect in my daily life.
Yes.
And I see when I get a little more less busy with my thoughts, I see some more subtle things which are probably obvious but I'm missing. I see this. I just notice many people who I see who are somehow related to Buddhism.
Yeah.
They seem to believe to this karma concept
Yeah.
in the form of some magic counting of good and bad.
Yes.
I just admitting I have no relation to this concept.
No.
I don't know. It's,
Me neither.
Yeah.
But they like it.
Seems a little bit like a religious belief. I don't know. Maybe I just don't. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, the kind of idea that if you do lots of good things, they kind of build up, and then something nice happens, like you go to heaven or something. Or if you do lots of bad things, and then if you do some bad things and then some good things. So it's a simple idea, but it's a way in ancient times of explaining something people couldn't explain scientifically. So for instance, if you eat lots of fruit, it's good for you. If you eat meat, it's not bad, so you eat some fruit and some meat. So, it's a very simple and ancient way of trying to explain the world. But the idea that there's some kind of container full of your good actions or your bad actions is quite simple way of thinking. Doesn't help me at all. On the other hand, I know that everything I do has an effect, and everything everybody does has an effect, and everything that everything does has an effect. So the world is linked together, and science is discovering more and more detail what those links are, in incredible detail. And with human behavior, we can understand our results of what we're doing by examining ourselves or going to see a psychoanalyst, or we can get some idea of what our actions are doing, and which actions are helping us and which actions are making our own life difficult. That's a kind of cause and effect. But we can't look at ourselves so objectively. We can look at the outside world objectively, but we can't look at ourselves objectively so easily.
And perhaps we are just lucky. It's kind of just luck that we are living in a safe country where there are no narco wars. Not
narco wars?
Cause of our
warlords.
good container of karma.
Narco?
Mafia. Narco mafia.
Yeah, we can say lucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you feel this? You feel this in your country?
Yes, it's very difficult.
But at the same time, this lucky state is also a result of works of generations. I mean, like 200 years, even in Europe, many parts, nearly everybody had at least one war in his lifetime, like in his country. I mean, it was common. So we are by luck here, but also it's like a result of people trying to get better world, and yeah.
Yes. And we live the result of history. Even we don't know
Good
it.
karma.
It's kind of karma, yeah.
Mike, but I guess also the concept of justice is just a concept, isn't it?
Of
Justice.
injustice.
Justice and injustice.
Justice.
Like human justice. I guess what this person was asking me is like the world is so unfair.
Oh yeah, it is unfair, yes.
And I just said, yeah, yeah.
It is, yeah.
That is the nature of
Yeah,
the thing, right?
yeah.
But I guess also the question was framed more like in these things, if you're good it has to be fair, or you have
Yes.
And I couldn't, I guess that's when I took the book, because I had nothing else to say. I just say, yeah, the world is unfair, it is like that, what can we do?
The universe doesn't know what fair is.
Yeah.
I like what Dr. Peterson said. He said that in his psychological practice,
Yes.
that none of his patients never get away with anything. Like when they broke some universal rule or something.
Yeah.
Like
you can't escape from cause and effect.
Yeah.
Yes. No, we can't escape. Even we don't know it. We still can't. Even we do something and we don't know the result, we can't escape the result.
No, ten doktor Peterson povedal, že v svojej praxi
používal.
Nie, že to nevidel.
Môžeš to povedať?
Nevidel,
Môžeš
aha.
teraz po česky?
No,
Že nerozumel tiež.
Že v jeho psychologické praxi žádný z těch jeho pacientů nikdy neuniklo vlastně následkům jejich jednání. Když porušili například, nevím, něco z desatera, nebo prostě nějaký univerzální zákon.
Popisuje nějakých pacientů, na kterých viděl tento zákon, tak?
No u všech pacientů. Nikdy neviděl, že by se někdo jakože něčeho...
Že by se něco stalo len tak, hej, čiže viděl tu příčinu u nich, tak? Aha.
Že by neunikli jakoby důsledkům si svého jednání.
This is also normal health. If you smoke, then you get cancer. Many of them.
Mike, but it's also very scary when realizing that the concept of justice is just a concept. Like, there is nothing you can grasp, or I feel like...
Well, in the human society, justice is very important. So we need that concept, and we need to make our behaviour agree with it in order to live together reasonably.
Yeah, but for example, in my country it doesn't work. Like it exists the concept, but there is no human justice in the concept of the society, how it should work.
Well, there's lots of injustice, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
So that's only the opposite side of justice, is injustice.
I think the situation in Slovakia maybe not so worse, but we see many bad cases, corruptions and so on. And then we see the concrete person that I know for a long time, he became a president. That is, wonderful, it's some miracle maybe, but he decided to do this justice because she wanted to be this. For me, is this example.
Yeah.
For me, I couldn't do it because it's amazing.
I guess my point was different. Like you saying that I wanted to believe like justice and you're a good citizen.
Oh.
Because it made me feel safe.
Oh, yes.
This is
That's right. That's why we do.
Me feel like,
That's
justice,
why
you know?
everything
But
is
it's
about.
not like that.
Well,
Apparently.
human society, we want to create something which is safe and
Exactly, yeah.
possible to live in. So it's all about being safe in a simple way.
Yeah.
Everything that we invent is to make our lives secure, because otherwise it's scary.
Sometimes the bad things happen at a scale which is beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't comprehend then, can we?
Yeah, it's just.
Uvedomiť si.
Realize.
We should stop now.
Realize.
We should stop now. Okay, we stopped.